The malacha of Bונה is, of all the malachas, there's something extremely unique about Bונה. Bונה is a malacha that you could learn the ganze Gemara, the whole parak Bונה. You could learn the Shulchan Aruch, Shin Yigimel, Shin Yudalid. You could learn the Mishnah Berurah, like you do learn the Mishnah Berurah, and you could still not toifus the Yesod of Bונה. And without the Yesod of Bונה, mamish, tons and tons, tens of shilas that come up every single Shabbos that the Mishnah Berurah doesn't talk about, that the Gemara doesn't talk about. If you have one Yesod in Bונה, everything can fall into place. If you're missing that Yesod, it could be, you could learn Bונה over and over in Shulchan Aruch over and over again, Mishnah Berurah over and over again. And what's that Yesod? We have to explain today what the Gemara starts out and says, "Haboina kolshu is chayiv." What's a kolshu? You have boina kolshu and you're chayiv. Kolshu means you do a very simple type of a building, something of sorts, some simple type of building, and you can be chayiv. Once we understand this, most of the shilas that we're going to talk about today are going to fall into place. And this has a lot of mashmusim. It doesn't just mean one thing, haboina kolshu chayiv. But there's something extremely unique. Other malachas, maybe the shear is a kolshu. In Bונה, there seems to be there's something much more tifarayin, something much deeper about this Bונה kolshu, which is chayiv. We get a little bit of a glimpse, is Chazal teach us that there's a difference between binyan b'kelim and binyan b'karka. And there's all these l'shainis all over Shas, Shastik Yidin, I'm speaking to that learn Beya, that learn Shabbos, Mar Erevin. We find in different l'shainis, such as ein binyan b'kelim. No, ein binyan b'kelim, mitzvah Hashem. After Hanukkah, we're going to have shirim, we're going to see yesh binyan b'kelim. But the Gemara says ein binyan b'kelim. And the Gemara says yesh binyan b'karka. No, today's shir is going to be about karka. Yesh binyan b'karka. What's going on here? Ein binyan b'kelim, but yesh binyan b'karka. It's very intriguing. What's going on here? Maybe if we get a little bit of an understanding over here of what is the side of the Melacha Bונה, everything will fall into place. All the Marmakaimis that we spoke about. Let's see. It seems to be that the Yesod of Bונה, this is the Yesod is one very simple Yesod. Bונה, as it was in the Mishkan Taka, was something that doesn't seem to be the way we would have envisioned Bונה. We would have envisioned Bונה with nails, with cement, something extremely aggressive. In the case of the Mishkan, it was Adonim. You were taking the crushim, you're putting them into the Adonim. There was no cement, there was no nails. It was things that fit into place. It was things that seemed dismantleable. And that was the example of Bונה in the Mishkan. This is where Chazal teach us that the Yesod of Melechus Bונה is a oneness. That's the Aleph Beis, most important Yesod that you're going to learn today. Whenever there's a oneness, that's called Bונה. The Chiddush is that by Karka, any oneness, anything that people view and see there's a oneness to that, that's already called Bונה, and that's already the Issa Deraisa of Bונה. Doesn't need cement, the Gemara says in Shabbos Kuf Beis and the Beis. It doesn't need nails. Once there's a oneness, and who's going to determine a oneness, that could be a big machlekes. But once there's a oneness, that's already called Bונה. That means Bונה kolshu is chayiv. Why Bונה kolshu? It means even when the Hilchos, not just in the Kallus, in the Hilchos, in the quality of the chibur is not such a strong chibur. But when somebody sees this as a oneness, that's already called Bונה b'karka. L'mashal, in the Haim, by me the Haim is flattish. In the Haim, used to have in front of the house over there on P and 29th, we still do, bricks that are, there's a paved part that goes up to the house, and there are bricks on each side of the paved part. That's how I left it. No, what happens on Shabbos? One of those bricks, which is not cemented in, one of those bricks problem of muksa. So a person thinks, okay, muksa, I know that the sheet is I can move muksa with. So he starts taking his foot and pushing it into the ground. Okay, maybe with your foot is klachar yan, but that would be Bונה, to take that brick and to shtup it into the ground, even though it's not cement and even though it's not nails. That's going to be Bונה deraisa. Why? Because everyone understands that the tzura of the chibur, of the connection between the brick and the house, there's a oneness even without cement and even without nails. So the oneness, when somebody sees it, says, now this has become one with the karka, yesh boine bekarka. That's what it means. Binyan kolshu is chayiv, yesh boine bekarka. Whereas by Kalim and Mitzvah Shem, we're going to learn it's not true. By Kalim, in order to get that chashivas, that it's considered a oneness, it's not enough that it comes apart. It has to be something that when we put it together, it remains and it's difficult to take apart. There's a strength of the chibur which makes the oneness. Anything that's dismantleable when it comes to Kalim, we don't see the oneness. The etzim fact that we could take it apart, that takes away the oneness, that takes away the echad. So therefore, for example, a person has, those cocktail cups. So the poskim say, look, on the first time to take the bottom and put it to the top, or a boy side to take a different bottom and put it to a different top. So when you take the bottom and a top and put it together for the first time, so that might be a separate malacha of Makah B'Patish, which in Mitzvah Hashem, we're going to do Mitzvah Hashem B'li Neder. But that's a separate malacha that the first time there was a creation of something that made it into the final product. But Rabbi say, now I want to take that leg and that cup, and I want to take it apart. No, and today in Eretz Yisrael, we want to save these things because Chad Pani is, nivel peh almost. So we take it apart. Now can I put it back together? Makah B'Patish is das nicht because it's not the first time. Binyan, l'chayr it's binyan. No, ein binyan the kalim. By kalim, the only time it's considered one is when it's together and it's tight and it's strong and it's something you can't get out. You need to get aggressive. Otherwise, there's no oneness. Everyone sees this as two parts. That is the difference between karka and kalim. And that's the biggest side, which today we're going to see over and over again. I'm telling you, Rabbi Sai, and the Mitzvah Hashem, I'm hearing your questions about Lego. I'm looking forward to talking about Lego. It'll bring me back to, my 30s. But you should know, Rabbi Sai, you could learn the whole Ganze Perek and the whole Shulchan Aruch Shin Gimel. And if you have this, smooth sailings. And if you don't have this, all the rules here, there's a lot of confusing rules. Now, there are bonans. The Chazal came along and added, et cetera, et cetera. But just Rabbi Say, let's start the sugya now. But this is the idea of Bונה. When there's a oneness, that's Bונה Bekarka. And that's the Raisa, Rabbi Say. When people see this as a oneness, what goes into making something oneness? That we'll have to discuss today. If it's considered, because when people see this, they see this as a part of the structure. We're going to have to talk about this. What's Kaveya? So let's get a little bit of a background from the Rishonim, from the Gemaras. The Gemara in Kuf Chav Amud Beis is after this Yisrael. The Gemara assumes you know this. You know what it was in the Mishkan. The Gemara assumes you know this. And the Gemara brings down that Kakach Haloin, Rabbi Lazar Omer Bezman Kasher, Tali Poikegim Boy, Vim Lav Ein Poikegim Boy, and the Chachamim say, which of course that's a Psak Halacha, brought in the Rambam in Perich Chav Beis Halacha Lamed, Kakach Haloin Bezman, that it's Mesukin, meaning it's a piece of board, some type of some wood piece or something like that, which it's oimed umayucha to be placed and plugging up the hole in your wall or the hole in your roof. That's your way in, that's your way out. If it's mesukin, even if it doesn't have a string which is attaching it, mutter lifkoik by a chalim. This is a chiddush. What's the chiddush? Hey, I could have heard. Now look, I have this piece of wood. I'm plugging up a hole. Maybe that becomes a oneness with the wall now. Maybe even if not on a deraisitic level, Al Kapanim on a derabbanim level, the chiddush of this Mishnah, the way the Rambam paskins l'halacha, is no. Everyone sees over here that it's not something that has a oneness. The reason we see, even though it's not attached, if it would have a string, everyone would realize it's not going to be something remaining. But even if it doesn't have a string which is attaching, but everybody understands there has to be a way in, there has to be a way out, and you are miyachid in the kach, which, like you heard from Rabbi Gottesman, that's a shaila of muks or not. We won't go into that part. But everyone understands that a house needs an entry and an exit, which Rabbi say is why we're going to have to see soon. It depends. What if you have something that you leave there and it doesn't have a tzura that it's meant to be opened and closed, and you leave it there for a long period of time? Maybe 30 days is considered a long period of time. So then that, at least on a drabbanic level, might be too much for Chazal to view as something that's two chalakim, and they might view this as one. Comes again the Bir Halacha in Sif Aleph in Dibra Maskevalo. And right now, the next few minutes, I'll do usually. I assume by now that you learned the Mamakayim because the Olam does learn the Mamakayim. I just want to read you inside to get you a bissel gefil for what we're going to see in the halacha l'maisa. The halacha in the B'maschal V'loi, he says, I am the Mishnah Berurah. If it's not something that's meant to be opened all the time, what's called all the time. Later, the Mishnah Berurah says maybe 30 days. So then he says that's aser, that's moisif al oil kavua. We see this as something that has been added on to an oil. What does he mean? He doesn't mean Hilchos oil. He means this is considered, you just built something into the wall. You didn't put in a door that's meant to open and close. We don't view it like that. If you have a piece of wood, then you leave in a hole in the wall, and every 30 days you go in and out. So then we view this as a piece of wall. You just made wall. You got yourself an easy access entry into the wall, but we could view this as a wall. And therefore the Mishnah Berurah says, and he says in such a case, there you need to come on with hinges and ropes, and that everyone realizes that this is something which is made to be opened and closed. And that's the first idea over here, Rabbi Isai. It's all going to be tali in its surah. If you have something that the surah of it is that's meant to be opened and closed, so then everyone's going to understand that that's not considered a moisif alabindi. That's not called that it became one with the karka. I'll give you an example. Rabbi said, I want you to think about, maybe by the end of the shir, this example will be clear. Maybe not. That's the hard part about Bונה. Bונה is extremely difficult because it's totally in the ice cook of the mensch, how a person looks at this. And different people look at things differently. We can give a little bit of help from the paiskin. But I want you to think about something. There's something in Eretz Yisrael, there's something called a boidim. I don't remember if boidim is an English word, a Yiddish word, or a Hebrew word. Somebody help me out here. But a boidim is like, in Eretz Yisrael, the diras are small, so you need storage space. So who needs a whole dira? As long as I don't hit my head, I'm fine. So you have this piece of plaster here and plaster there, and al-gaveim, and they put over here, like, the plaster comes down and they make like like an attic of sorts. Thank you. I'm seeing it's a Yiddish event. Okay. So it has like some type of imagine above my head right here would be a piece of the wall here and a wall here, and it comes down. Now, sometimes it's quite primitive looking, and sometimes you can't tell. It just looks like the roof. So in the fancy dira, a person doesn't want to have like a roof and a face, like a door. So what they do is that sometimes they'll make at the end of the boidim a piece of plaster, which it looks mamish like the wall. And you can't tell that it opens. And as a matter of fact, it doesn't even have hinges or anything like that. Because if it has hinges, I think everyone realizes that, even if it's not opened once in a year. But it doesn't matter. You didn't build because you didn't take it off. Once it's on a hinge, you're mishtamish with that which already exists. That's not called I built it. When I opened it, it's not called I broke it. When I close it, it's not called I built it. But a lot of the new diras, what they have is, they have this piece of plaster, and you click it, and it comes off. You can imagine what we're talking about. And most people would look at that and wouldn't even know that there's a boidim over there. Rabbi say, how often do you open up your boidim? Definitely, it's not your closet, right? Once in 30 days, if that much, we store things in there. Such a thing, Rabbi say, that when people would look at it, they would not see that this is considered a door. This is considered to them like a piece of wall. So when you would take that off, you broke the wall. When you would be putting it on, you just were moisif a wall. Now you say, come on, but it's not true. We know over there inside is an attic and there's stuff that goes in there and it's like a door. Okay, but Bונה is a tsura. I'm not sure if this is deraisa. I'm not sure if this is derabanan, but I ain't doing this on Shabbos, Rabbi say, because it certainly looks like something like the Mishnah Berurah is talking about over here. Mishnah Berurah and Magen Avram in Sif Ches, he discusses something that's made with a luach echas. Once something is made with one shtick, it has more of a tsura of the wall. For example, comes again the Mishnah Berurah in Shin Ches, Sivkat Lamed Hey, Sivkat Lamed Tes, there are Hashulchan also in Sivchav Zayin Bayas, and they say the same thing, and it's Murder Gazach. Yizaycha to come to Eretz Yisrael, like coming to the Shir, you all come to Eretz Yisrael. I'm going to tell you this Mishnah Berurah is extremely negeya. It could be the houses in Eretz Yisrael have it much more than in America. I'm going to show you in one moment. But the Mishnah Berurah says over here that you have a window, and Rabbi said this window is the easiest thing in the world to take in and out. It's not attached by nails. It's not attached by cement. It's on a track. You lift it up and you take it right out. The Mishnah Berurah brings down, this is not just aser. This is aser even to get a goy to take out, because to remove it is soiser. Deraisa, because the window becomes one with the house, with the structure. But it's the easiest thing. It just comes in and out. But that's the rice, it's bone kolshu is chayiv. What do you mean? It's dismantleable. It comes in and out. That's why they made it like that, so I could take it in and out. But it looks like a part of the structure. That's an iser d'oraisa. That's an iser d'oraisa. And you know what? I think even if you go through that window all the time, that would also be an iser d'oraisa, because the tsura of a window is something that's made to remain. Obviously, you made this easy access so that when you have to clean, when you have to fix, etc. But that becomes a bone kolshu. And I happen to have one right over here. I'll move the camera for one moment, as you can all see. All right. If you see that window right here, right? I'm not going to do it right now. You see, we're getting ready for Hanukkah also. But if you see over there, this window right over here, with the greatest of ease, it happens to be, it's a bit heavy, so but this thing comes up and you just take it right out of the track. And since you could just take it right out of the track, that would be, says the Mishnah, usher to do even al yedei agoy on Shabbos. It's a shvus on a deraisa. The Mishnah says that would be extremely usher. Now, everybody say one day maybe we'll learn Tzaitzer, and we have to figure out, don't we need to take it out? I could hear to put it back, it's Buna, but to take it out, don't we need Tzaitzer Amanas live nice over here? It wasn't Amanas live nice. Okay, that's a sugya that we have to talk about. Or Rabbi Isai, I'll allow you to all look up at my house. You all have come into my room over here in Eretz Yisrael. If you look up, you see over there a tris. You see the tris box. This is the tris, and that's a tris box. Okay, you can see one over there also. Right? I think the Ilam sees my. Yeah, I see on the. You are seeing it. That's the tris box up there. Rabbi Isai, that tris box. I'm going to tell you the secret. That tris box that you just saw does not have nails that are, or screws that are closing in the tris box. And it looks mamish like a part of the house, right? It looks like the wall of the house. And I say, to take that off on Shabbos, and I'll give you a case in a moment why a person would want to take it off on Shabbos. To take it off on Shabbos and to put it on Shabbos is probably an Isser Daraisa Mamish. Why? Because it's a very normal thing. Don't forget, if it's normal that you take the thing and attach it to the ground with cement or nails, so it could be by default, it won't be a Baina Bekarka because you did it in a Kalach Yad strange stick away. But it still would be a Drabana. But anything that's normal to be attached in that way without nails, without screws, but becomes a oneness with the Karka, that's Baina Deraisa. Why by the Trisbach? In Eretz Yisrael, it's very common to not have the nails, to not have screws. They make something look exactly like the wall, and you have to shtupsuk and you take it in, you take it out, and they have these little these little what is the word I'm looking for? These little latches, that block it from falling on your head. But Rabbi say to take it off on Shabbos would be an Issa D'Oraisa. Why is it Negeya? I remember I was a bacha, and I ate a meal by somebody. When I was a bacha, I ate a meal by somebody, and this person has ksavim from Rabbi Kiva Eger. He has ksavim from Rabbi Kiva Eger. The actual ksav of the Goyim Rabbi Kiva Eger mamish. So he wanted to show me in the middle of the meal. He went to the safe. Where was his safe? His safe was the tris box. He took off the tris box in the middle of the meal. He went in there. It must have been money there also. I don't know what else he's keeping in there. But I guess he trusted me. And over there are the ksavim of Rabbi Kiva Eger. Obviously all in a plastic because it's by the tris from the outside world. But he held it. This was a person that had a tremendous amount of years Shemayim and a tremendous ava for Rabbi Kiva Eger, but he's in tremendous trouble unless he does tshuva. Because to take that on and off on Shabbos, even though you see he probably goes in once in a while, but the tsura of it is something that's meant to be one with the karka. If it's meant to be one with the karka, those can sein Baina D'Oraisa even.
Then you wouldn't be able to read the Ksavim because it's Ma'aseh Shabbos.
Right? So the Shaila with Ma'aseh Shabbos is Gemara in Erevin, if I'm not mistaken, I think on Daf Lamed Hey, that the Gemara says that since if you could break through it, the Gemara talks over there about breaking through, so it doesn't necessarily answer the chefza, because the Isser Malacha wasn't done in the chefza. But Akapanim, also maybe Mitzvah Slav Dehenis knew what we spoke about, so perhaps there's no Isser of Hanoah, but then a Chanami. And Rabbi Isai, with this, I can tell you, I don't fully understand what I read in the Chazayin Ish, in Orach Chaim and Siman Memvav Ois Gimel. He talks about a certain type of a double window. He talks about a certain type of a double window. We know, in America, and then we have these like storm windows, and sometimes you have like a window with a screen. Based on what you heard today, it should come out that that's something that remains there. A screen remains. I don't mean a screen that you pick up and down. I mean the one that you just take right out, and it becomes a oneness with the karka, certainly during the summer season. So this is the Shulchan Alevi, Rebelsky, Zeichat Tzadik Levracha, and Perek Ches Beis. He says, Eloi tzil achzer reshet l'mesilos hachala b'Shabbos ze bichlal is the bina. And that makes a lot of sense to us, because there's a oneness. Why did they make the tris like that? Of course, they wanted it that I don't have to break apart my house every time the tris breaks. But that doesn't mean that it didn't become a oneness with the karka. You know, somebody was once trying to give a prabha. The Chazon Ish in Mem Vav Ois Gimel seems to say not like this, but I think he's just talking about a different Metzias. You know, it seems to be there was like a separate window that was there, which wasn't really attached. I don't understand it. So therefore, I don't think it's a lochal l'maisa. You know, Rabbi Isai, there was somebody who once gave like a shtickle of prabha to explain, like, how do you know what's one with the karka, what becomes one with the karka, what doesn't become one with the karka? It's an interesting prabha. So anything that when the person leaves, this is not, it's just a way to give you something to attach onto. It's not halacha l'moshe b'sinai. But anything that when you leave the dira, you leave it there also, then that shows it's a oneness with the karka. It's not exeris akas, but just like conceptually. Sometimes you have like, you know, the heating element. I know when I was growing up, I don't know if it still exists, but they had that base heating, you know, by the floor. It was that tube on the floor, that pipe on the floor. And you don't want to, you know, everyone should see the pipe on the floor. It's pasnish. So you have like a nice looking piece of, sometimes a piece of metal, a piece of wood over it and on the side of it. And that thing, Rabbi said, the one that I'm thinking of, just came off and came on. It wasn't attached with nails and screws. To take that on and off on Shabbos, I mean, it's a deraisa mamish, even though it comes off with the greatest of ease. So too, you know, a person has like a carpet a rug that goes wall to wall, mamish, and sometimes it comes up a little bit and whatnot. So you want to put it down and you want to tuck it under. You know, sometimes you have a piece of the wall and you tuck it under. Let's think for a minute, Rabbi Isai. That thing becomes one with the karka. I'm not talking about a carpet. That a carpet that doesn't become one with the karka. That's why the malacha is extremely difficult. You know, I have outside fake grass. My fake grass goes the exact on the area. It goes exact on the area. And clearly anyone that would look at my fake grass, I would hope doesn't know it's fake. That's first of all. And second of all, he sees it as a oneness. It's not just a carpet. I would be very scared on Shabbos to move around the fake grass. A hose. Let's think, Rabbi say, you take a hose and you attach it to the, you know, to the faucet outside. A hose is something in my house, the hose remains. The ganze Zeit, the whole entire time, the hose remains. So forget the fact, you know, screwing in. Okay, you could also screw a bottle up and down, and that wouldn't be called bina. Here, the nekuda is not because of the screw. The nekuda is because there's a oneness that it becomes. For example, let's say the screw is on and you're just putting in the pipe, and it goes in. You know how it is. That would be bina kolshu, and that would be in a sideraisa because it's a oneness that becomes one with the karka. So that's a basic shtikla gedama that I think now everybody understands that bina just took on a whole new dimension. That now we have to be aware of different things. That the oneness is. Someone told me, I don't know if this is true, but someone told me on bells on the top of the base medrash, there are these massive, massive pillars. They're massive, like, you know, these massive, beautiful looking structures. Someone told me those things are not cemented on. I don't want to stand on the bells and find out the hard way, but apparently they're not cemented on. They just placed them there. They're extremely heavy, and they're just placed there. And that is the tzura of bells. To do that on Shabbos, of course, would be in the Segamra. That example is the example of the Gemara in Shabbos, Nafkuf Beis. Bells was Mekafim.
While you're drinking, could I ask a question? Did I understand the Rav to say those green astroturf carpets that people use, for instance, sukkahs, can't furl them?
Sukkahs, I'm not sure. Sukkahs, I'm not sure, because sukkahs might have the tzura. It really depends on the tzura. The one I was describing, I can't take you out now because it's dark outside, but the one I was describing is it really fits exactly in the area. It goes exact, it goes there, it was cut exactly to the sides.
Wall to
and it
wall.
fits perfectly.
Wall to wall, right.
Wall to wall, wall to wall. So it's a tzura. I would certainly be nervous on Shabbos. The reason I'm saying this even is it was actually once Negeya. One time there was a certain drip that was occurring on Shabbos underneath where that grass was. And on Shabbos, I wanted to see what was going on. You know, I wasn't going to fix anything over there, but I wanted to see what was going on, if it was coming from that side or from that side. And then I realized, forget the memtzei cheftzcha, that you might not be allowed to be checking on Shabbos to what things you're going to be fixing during the week. I realize there's a bigger problem. If I move that grass, that could be a malacha d'oraisa because this is its mokum and has a tzur of a oneness with the karka. And I think I'm right. A person could learn God's bina, he might not know this. And that's the aleph base that everybody's assuming you know. That's the aleph base. Yeah, I also want to stay in my bed, right? But even that might be a problem. What do you mean? Who says maybe the cover becomes oneness? I know some bachrim, they sleep forever. No, become one with the karka. No, but let's get weiter. No, let me get weiter. Now, based on this, let's take a few examples and try to, there's one more yisai that you need, which is a yisai that gets mentioned in Shin Yudalid in the Ramah. I didn't bring the Marmokim, I'm just going to tell it to Balpeh. But in Shin Yudalid, it's a klal in Gans Buna that sometimes you can have something which is so big, it's 40 saw, however big 40 saw is, but this is already 40 saw, and that doesn't have a din of kalim, that has a chashivas of karka. For example, we'll talk in a moment about a svarim shank, at least the toich of a svarim shank, certainly a normal size svarim shank, is 40 saw. So that no longer has the din of a kli. That has the din of karka. Your fridge, this is going to be negaya. And as you go now, I'll go through a few examples and you'll see, and what we're going to have to try to figure out is what becomes one with the karka and what doesn't become one with the karka. Now, before I get into examples, you see in the background, there's a picture of the Chazaynish. And I want to tell you, that picture on Shabbos, you're not allowed to take off the wall. If you look, I mean, you can't look, but if you go over there and turn left, there's a picture over there of the Chafetz Chaim. That picture you're allowed to take off on Shabbos. Yosher, you can design. The picture of the Chazanish, Metarnish. The picture from Heilige Chafetz Chaim, as we can what's the chilik to vision the build from the Chafetz? What's the chilik between the picture of the Chafetz Chaim and the picture of the Chazanish? What's the nafkamina? So now, this is the last piece of the puzzle before we get into cases, is the most fascinating shaila based on the Shulchan Aruch in the Ramah, in a separate sugya, which we're going to take out what we want from that sugya. In Siman Shin Tes Vav, Mit Hashem, one day we'll learn a big sugya of Mechitza Materes that we have to learn. But over there, in Shin Tes Vav, there is a Trumas Adeshin in Chelik Aleph Siman Sameches, which is brought in the Ramah. And it's not just the Ramah, it's brought by the Poskim, and nobody seems to argue. What does it say over there in the Ramah? What does it say? The Mishavura brings it over there in Sivkat and Zion. I'll quote you from the Beis Yosef. He's discussing over there, actually I'll quote you from the Trumas Adeshin. He's discussing over there some type of tapestry, some type of wool tapestry which is attached to the wall. That's one thing he's discussing. And they discuss over there, the poskim, not just a wool tapestry, like some type of fancy cloth on the wall. Also, they're discussing that you have some type of curtain that the nails are already in the wall. We're not talking where you're nailing it to the wall, that of course would be baina. And you're attaching the curtain to each side. You don't have a door in the doorway, but you have a nail on each side, and you're attaching a curtain there for tznius purposes that you can walk through. The sugya over there is saying that it's not a problem mechitza materes. It's also not a problem mechitza because it's not attached on the top, it's not attached on the bottom, but you hang it on the top, somewhat like a shower curtain or something like that. But it's in between two parts of your house. You have a nail there, and you're just hanging up something there. And the price can say you're leaving it there. Is that thing mutter on Shabbos to put up? Is it mutter to put that up on Shabbos? Is it mutter to put a wool tapestry on Shabbos? So listen to the Trumas Adeshin. The Trumas Adeshin says, he brings a Rashi, and he says, Mashma da'ayri bevilon shenoit denoisei leprakim, kisheroitzin lasait tznius, aval eina tali tadir. Ulefiza aparoiches shetali tadir, he says, shayich oil, mikol mokam nir lechalik. This is just negayos. The vadai viloy natali tadir lifnei pesach, shayich oil, because it's like a door. But a paroiches lifnei oren sheblav achiyesh deles, he says, first of all, let's say the paroiches by the Aron HaKodesh. He says, that paroiches, you could take on and off. A paroiches ain't no tali sham elad tznius. I'm sorry, don't take it on and off. A paroiches ain't no tali elad tznius. Abagav the tali sham bikfias enk peda. It's there for kvias enk peda. Says the Beis Yosef, the Trumas Adeshin was Mekel. If your toilet is something between the rooms, he says, as long as it hangs from the bottom, the Trumas Adeshin was Mekel. Shari. Even though you hang up this V-line always, it's mutter. What's this? Next, Kum Tzegein the Mishnah Berurah It's also quoting Magen Avram. He says, not only that, that's if you're putting it between two rooms. Then you can't attach it on the top and attach it on the bottom. He says, but if you're hanging it on the wall, because you're not making a mechitza b'chlal. Okay. Comes again the Chazon Ish and he screams in Nun Beis Yud Gimel. He says, what's going on over here? What is going on over here? You're taking a tapestry, you're putting it on the wall. Rabbi side, you take wallpaper, you put it on the wall. Forget the toifer that you're over gluing it to the wall. If you take wallpaper, based on what we said today, aren't you making it one with the wall? You're over on Bונה. So he says, what's going on? He's taking a curtain, he's hanging it on one side and the other side, and he's not taking it down. And he's leaving it there. Says the Chazon Ish, that's Bונה. They're discussing their mechitza, they're discussing their oil. Bונה. It became one with the karka. He says, what about the tapestry? The tapestry is now, that's the wallpaper. That became one with the karka. But Rabbi side, the Chazon Ish, so that picture of the Chazon Ish, don't take it down on Shabbos. But Rabbi side, the Chazon Ish is arguing on all the poskim that ever lived before him. The Mishnah Brura, the Magen Avram, the Chayot, the Meli Rabbi, the Toys of Shabbos, the Berhetiv, the Tveres Yisrael, the Mishnayos, the Graz says, the Sterach HaShulchan, I didn't see any Achron, the Neis Yisrael, the Machzah Shekel, I didn't see any Achron that even asked the Kasha. So that means this is such a Yisayistic machlekes. It's a machlekes that the Chazon Ish holds so pashut that this is becoming one with the Karka, and the Mishnah Brura and all of the poskim till the Trumas of Dashen and beyond. All of this is so pashut, not a part of the Karka. It's a very, we have to understand this. So let's go Mikala Lekovid. I think on a picture, even maybe the Chazon Ish might agree, even though that's a big machlekes between the great nephews of the Chazon Ish, that's a big shaila. But Rabbi say a picture on a wall, when somebody puts a picture on the wall, I'm not talking obviously where he screws it in. When a person puts a picture on the wall, does anybody see that as becoming one with the karka? You don't see that. It's a picture on the wall. Like we just said, it doesn't become one with the karka. There's a very big chilik between that and wallpaper, that the wallpaper is now one with the wall. That became a part of the wall. That's the extension of the wall, Kivyachal. The Chazon Ish looked at tapestry as becoming one with the wall. It enhances the wall. It's like wallpaper. We could hear that tapestry is not like wallpaper. You understand yourself. It's something that is, not stuck on. It's not something that's surah of it. I'll say stronger. Again, the prava. If somebody would leave the dira, he would take the tapestry with him, theoretically. Mashenkin wallpaper is not taking it off unless he got into a fight with the guy he's selling it to. There's something that becomes a oneness. The Chazon Ish said, okay, no tapestry, I don't understand. But he said also something that is a little bit difficult to understand. When you take a curtain and you koiveya it there forever, the nails are already there, but you hang up that curtain in between the wall, in between the room, didn't that become one with the karka? So here's an incredible chiddush that all the poskim took on that like that. And all the poskim said that if you have something that is not a building type material, so then if you attach it at the top and attach it at the bottom, you just made a wall. You can't get in, you can't get out. But if you take something which is not a building type material, so then we don't see it as becoming a oneness with the karka. We view this as a shimush of the room. We view this as kivyachol, like the table didn't become one with the karka. So this thing over here, it's not building material. It's not something that becomes one. Hagam, a carpet, which is wall to wall, can yes become one with the karka because it's all tali in the tzura. When you have this, we see a curtain hanging over here. There's a very big chiddush. How to apply this chiddush? That we need a lot of rachmei shemayim. Nafkamina is sometimes you have those Venetian blinds, Rabbi side, and one of them came out. I don't know if they still have them, but when I grew up, they had them. And one of those Venetian blinds comes out. One of those slats comes out. Right? When you put that back in, is that called? It became one with the karka. L'chayra, those Venetian blinds, they remain there the whole entire time. L'chayra, that becomes one with the karka. Are we going to say that this the Mishnah Brura is also going to disagree with? This becomes very difficult. I'll go now based on this hakadama. Let's try to go case by case and see what we have here. First of all, you have a magnet. Are you allowed to put a magnet on the fridge? We spoke once about kaisif. You want to wake up in the morning, you want to tell your wife, I love you. You put it on so that's a shaila of kaisif. No, it's a whole shaila because you're not making letters, you're only making words. Okay, but let's say you want to just take a magnet and put it on the fridge. A fridge has the din of karka. Remember, we said a fridge is 40 sa. So now it doesn't become one. So what do you think, Rabbi Isai? Does a magnet become one with the karka? Or when you see a magnet on a fridge, you don't see this has become the fridge. I think everybody understands a magnet doesn't have a oneness with the fridge, and everyone will agree that at least beside Hilchos Bונה, you're allowed to take it on and take it off on Shabbos. I don't think anybody would have a kash on that. Okay, it's also not toifer. It's also not, okay. What if you have like this, Rabbi Isai? You have gum stuck on the floor, and you can differentiate. I saw in a sefer called the Binyan Shabbos on the 16th page. It's a wonderful sefer. Excuse me. It's a wonderful sefer where he goes through all the inyanim of Binyan. He talks he says, if you have gum that's stuck to the floor, he writes it's mutter to take it off. He says it's nicker that it doesn't become one with the floor. Now, I agree theoretically with what he's writing, but I feel it's very dangerous to write it in the way he wrote. Let's say a person is in some public place or whatnot, and the gum has been there, mamish attached to the floor for the last 20 years. You know that pink thing I'm thinking of? I think all of us are thinking of the high school and whatnot. And there's a piece of pink something latched onto the floor, and he decides on Shabbos he wants to scrape it off. The cover Shabbos Kodesh. I don't know. There comes a point where it becomes one with the karka, Rabbi Isai. I agree. If a little piece of gum is on the floor and it just fell on the floor, you don't see it as a oneness. I could hear it, right? Your fridge. Now, Rabbi Isai, each fridge is different, but I'll tell you what goes on in the fridge. Everyone knows today, the fancier the fridge, the easier they make it to take apart. The shelves on the door, for example. Thank you, bazooka. Just took me out, took me back. The shelves on the door, right? Everyone knows you just pick them up and they come right out. Are you allowed to do that on Shabbos? Very nikeya. Something spills in the fridge on Shabbos. Let's go one by one. The door shelves. Rabbi Isai, those shelves, the reason they made it like that is bidafka, so that when things spill, it should be easy to just take it out and wash it in the sink. But do you take them out all the time? You don't take them out all the time. Is it surah of the fridge? This is the surah of the fridge. There's a oneness with it. Echad moira, and even if the fridge is on wheels, but it's one big kli, and that has a din of karka. It's 40 saw. Rabbi Isai, echad moira, and this is talking. You look around. In many of the Paiskim, they discuss this, and they all say that for sure, the door itself, everyone would understand, even if the door comes right off, but that's the tsura. But even the shelves on the door, those ones, Rabbi Isai, I think most people do not take them out all the time. The shelves in the fridge itself, which mamish, they come in and out with the greatest of ease, but now we learned Bונה has nothing to do with that. Bונה is a tsura. So now I guess this is a very difficult shiloh, because there are sometimes people do raise the fridge shelves up and down. And this is something that I know the Paiskim argue about. And, I'm not going to say that you can't lift it to get the soup pot to fit, but to take it out and to change the shelf level, I'm very, very nervous to do such a thing. I'd be very nervous. The one thing I'm less nervous about is the bin, my wife's English, I forgot what you guys call it, the vegetable drawer. The vegetable drawer. That taka is very, very common. That plastic you draw, you guys know what I'm talking about. People ask me, they have to teufel it because it comes in and out. It's not really, okay, it's plastic, so you don't teufel it. But it's something that most people, they take it out, they put the vegetables, and then they put it into the fridge. That's how they use it. So the fridge has a bucket, kivyachol, that you hang this bucket on the fridge. That, I think most people agree. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, if you look in the Tzitz Eliezer in the 18th volume of the 35th Siman or space, he seems to be saying this also. That thing, taka, people see is not a part of the karka. But you see how complicated it can get, Rabbi Isai, when we're trying to get the Gedara. You have a child safety gate. Now, I would love to take you to the other part of the house, but, Rabbi Isai, there's two child safety gates. There's one child safety gate, which you got to take it off or you can't get through. So the whole tsura is it did not become one with the house. But then you have these gates. The one I have, Rabbi Isai, is you take, it's not a screw, but it's you screw the suction. It's not really a suction, but the piece that you keep on opening wider and wider until it lodges in to the wall. And then the gate, you just open and close. But it's very firm with the wall. And it remains there until the child doesn't need a safety gate anymore. So I don't know. Is that like the case of the Mishnah Berurah? Thank you. I don't know if that like the case of the Mishnah Berurah, that the Mishnah Berurah was talking about where you have a V-line that you hang there. I saw one sefer he wanted to be Bakel. He said it's like the case of the Mishnah Berurah. First of all, the Chazon Ish is okay, no, but Lamaisa, is that the lumdus of the Mishnah Berurah? The lumdus of the Mishnah Berurah is he's taking a V-line, which is something that flaps. It's something that you don't see as becoming a oneness. This gate, I agree, it's not going to be a oneness forever, but there's certainly something that remains there for a very, very long time. I Lamaisa asked this question to Rafal when he was in my house and he saw the safety gate. Oh, thank you very much. Let's see which one I'm talking about. Which safety gate? Could you make the picture a bit bigger? Those parts. Yeah, go down now. Keep going down, go down. Go down a moment, or what is that?
You don't mean down in price.
Move
it down.
I'm not getting it. Go down, go down.
You got another one?
Yes, it becomes very difficult. I'm being asked from Rabbi Smith over here, a very good question. He says, look, I'm a Zayda, and Rabbi Smith, I do the same thing as you, but he says, I only put it up when the kid comes. But the problem is, if this is a surah of something that people put up, I don't mean the one that you take on and off. I mean the one that you lodge in and you wedge into its place. I don't know. I get nervous that that's something that stays for a long period of time. We asked Rafal when he came to my house. He looked at it, and Rafal said it's a problem. He felt that to do that on Shabbos was being Issa. Now, this one that I'm being seen over here, I think that one you can't get through unless you open it. No? That's a door? No, that one is not the one. That would be for sure mutter, because that one, the only way to get in and out is you'd have to take off the whole thing. If I think, maybe I'm wrong. I can't tell.
No, I think tell. There's a latch there. That's a latch.
And then that latch enables you to walk in and out.
Right, chayra.
I would be nervous for sure.
You can see it with the. You see
there you go.
Okay, so what's usser? What's usser?
So they have these ones that are wedged in, and then you just open it up, and it clicks into place.
How do you open it?
It has like a little handle.
So that's like this. Why is that different than this one?
Because this one, if I'm not mistaken, you have to take the whole thing off. It's more like this one. You can't see me pointing, but the second top one, not the one that we were looking at before. That one, I think that one, if I'm not mistaken, yeah, that's the one that I have, I think. And it's like a door, and you don't take the whole thing off. You just
this one on the stairs is usher. This one on the stairs.
This one I can't tell.
What's together here?
The gather is if something is the way, it doesn't remain. What's the gather, right? It doesn't remain. It's something that remains. Let me see that one. They don't show you the opening. If that, I can't tell if that one remains.
It swings out.
Yeah. So that one swings out. So that would remain and becomes a part of the structure. I would certainly be very nervous to do that on Shabbos. I don't know the Raisa, but I would certainly be scared that such a thing would be there. But Rafal held it was talking in Sikama. But the ones that would swing out, and it's very negaya because comes Shabbos, and all of a sudden you realize, a Zayda realizes the parents know what's going on with the kid. And the Zayda realizes, oh, Gaval, the kid is walking all over if they didn't know. And so it's very negaya, and you find this out on Shabbos. So that's a serious issue. It's a serious issue. Now, shelves, Svarim Shank, Rabbi said everyone knows how shelves on a Svarim Shank are. You just take them on, you take them off, they're not screwed into place. Obviously, if they're screwed, it's a different story. And it comes sometimes on Shabbos, and the shelf falls over. Rabbi say, to do even a bina kol shoe, to put it back, those little pegs, and you put the peg is in, it just fell off. To put it on the peg, that is the tzura of the karka. And this is Arbaim Sa, and this is the example that all the poskim today bring. If I'm not mistaken, when I was a young bacher, I read this even in the Art Scroll book, he brings this down that could be called bina b'karka. That could certainly be bina karka. Now, there are things which are clearly meant to be taken in and out, like, they have those communal towels. I mean, I don't know. I think the one good thing about COVID is we got rid of those guys. But, in the old days, to get these communal towels, and for Shteitzach, it was like, even with it would go in, it would click into place, and you have to take it off. but that didn't become one with the karka because everybody knows the only way to use it is by taking it on and off. They talk about the toilet paper dispenser. It's not negay because you can't use toilet paper on Shabbos anyways. But let's say you want to take that toilet paper dispenser and put it in. So besides the muksa issue, would it be buna? It won't be buna because it's clearly from its tzura meant to be taken in and out. You could think about, Rabbi said, what about a mezuzah? Mezuzah is a very interesting shaila. The Shmir Shabbos in the 23rd parak in Ara Kufiyat Zayin, he seems to be machmer on the shaila. In other words, I'm obviously not talking about a mezuzah that you're screwing in and out, but the mezuzah, let's say, you just take it right out. There are mezuzahs like that, and you yaitz a mezuzah, he just takes it in and takes it out. So the Shmir Shabbos looks at it that it's a part of the house, and it's in this battle to the house, and it becomes one with the house. This is not so pashut to me, because first of all, the Tzitz Eliezer in Chelik Gimel Simin Gimel Ois Gimel, he says pashut ein kol iser b'nesina or b'achzaras hamezuzah el nartika shebemashkait ve'ein kol chash of machzik misakas. He says it's pashut nisht. Now, what's the nidin? You all learned today what the nidin is. The nidin is you have these two guys, Gedolim, the Shmir Shabbos, and you have Rav Aldenberg, and they're looking at this and they're saying, what is a mezuzah? Is a mezuzah something that the tzura is there, no one ever reads a mezuzah? Or is the mitzias of a mezuzah that, no, you have this scroll in a scroll not attached to your house. This is a scroll which is, nonetheless still a scroll. And if you didn't nail it in, so then you want the scroll attached to the house, but not necessarily what we would consider a binyan attached to the house. You want to have this sefer kivyachol on the house. That doesn't mean necessarily that that's nivna into the house. Very difficult shaila. Certainly, if it falls on Shabbos, mistama you'd be machmir. You're going to say, but I'm without a mezuzah. But since the din is that and you can't do that. So it's like if a person would have tzitzis that ripped on Shabbos, we wouldn't have a taina that he has to be kavayet. So such a thing, if it would happen on Shabbos, we would probably tell him not to put it back. Pictures on Shabbos, to put back up pictures. I do believe that pictures, everyone views pictures as being considered on the wall and not a part of the wall. That's l'chayr. Like you heard before, the tris is certainly a problem. Now, drain holes and manholes is very interesting. I didn't give the other marmikoimis because it's such big sugyas with muksa and whatnot, but I'll just enlighten you a little bit. In Siman Shin Ches, in Sif Yud, it discusses over there different types of manholes and drain holes. It's a very difficult sugya because the sugya mixes between muksa at the same time that it's mixing between buna. And the sugya over there tells you that you have to have some type of a handle in order to show that it's not muksa. And at the same time, it seems to be dealing with the buna problem. Now, there's some very big problem, and that's why I didn't give them marmikoides. But, and this is what I want to explain. When you look over there in Siman Shin Ches, in Sif Yud, it talks about a drain hole, and it seems to say that berega you have a beis achiza, a handle, then it's not considered muksa, it's not considered buna, and everything is fine, and you can take this drain hole off. But if it doesn't have the handle, and I'll describe a handle in a moment, if it does not have a handle, so then it sounds like that it's usher, and it sounds like we don't even care if it's meant to be taken on and off, and we don't care anything about 30 days and this and that. Like, what's going on over here? We spoke today that if you have things that the tzura of them is clearly meant to be taken on and off, so then we're usually not considering that to be moisif ala binyan. It seems to me that drain holes, I don't know if what I'm making now is a balabata shechilik, but it seems to be that drain holes and things that are on the ground, we automatically assume there's a oneness with the karka. And if you have a handle, you see it takes care even of that. Now, I'm a little bit navai how far to take this. Let me explain it myself. In Eretz Yisrael, they have sponge holes. The sponge holes have around them they have around them a rim. The reason for that rim is, first of all, the sponge hole doesn't fall into the ground, and second, the sponge cover doesn't fall to the ground, and second of all, that you should be with easy access, be able to lift it off. There are many poskim that consider that to be a beis achiza, and therefore it would be mutter on Shabbos to lift that up. If you had some type of a spill or something, you want to push it in there, okay, without getting involved now in cleaning the floor on Shabbos. But let's say there's a type of a hole, and it's not, oh, very good, thank you. So you have these sponge holes, and the one that has a rim around it, you clearly see distinct it's a rim. Some of them, Rabbi Isai, do not have a rim around them, and they just have slats. And you're able to take it off through the slats, but you also have the option of not taking it off with chlal and letting the liquid go straight through the slats. To lift that off on Shabbos could quite possibly be an Isser, certainly D'Rabbanan, maybe D'Oraisa, because it doesn't have a base achiza that shows you it's meant to be taken on off. We all know it's meant to be taken on off, but it could clearly remain there, and it clearly could be used without taking it on and off. And that's why many places can say in this case it would be an Isser Gomer to take it off. The one we discussed before has a rim that goes around. It's clearly distinct, and it doesn't have holes in it. It's clearly distinct to everyone. It's clear to everybody that you have to take it off, and there's a base achiz that you can take it off with. Now, I have a shtickle shaila, which I'm not so clear about. On my tris box that we spoke about before, all I do is I put a handle and boom, everything's okay. Because now it looks like a door. Something strikes me as difficult with that. I'm not clear. It is a different sugya. I didn't send my mekayvus to the oilam on this sugya, and it is quite difficult. But for example, if a person would want on Shabbos to take off the manhole in the middle of the street, the manhole, Rabbi Isai, if you're strong enough, comes off with the greatest of ease, right? The manhole is, it's just very heavy, but it's not welded in, and it's not screwed in, it's not cemented in. But that's something that remains and remains and remains for a very, very long time. And I'm chayshish that's a deraisa that becomes a oneness with the karka. That became the tsura of the karka. So this Rabbi Isai, in a nutshell, is the first part of the sugya. The basic idea, like you're hearing, is oneness. If something has a oneness to it, so then that becomes bina b'karka. We saw today, to determine oneness, it's not just in karka, it's in big kalim also. We saw if it's a kli, so then the first time is mager batish. The upcoming times, ain binyan b'kalim. What does it mean when the poskim say yesh binyan b'karka? They mean anything in the quality of the eichos. For example, last Shabbos I was walking out of a dira somewhere by a simcha, and there was a piece of like a splinter coming out of the door. And there was, kept making like a scratching noise when you close the door. And some well-meaning gentleman, without realizing it, just went over and took it off. Right? That's b'ina b'karka. That's an issa deraisa. Hey, you think maybe it's soiser because he took it off? I'm not sure. Maybe it's soiser deraisa. Okay, maybe it's soiser deraisa. But what did he do? He was soiser almanas for a tikkun. It's a b'ina kol shoe. It's a little epis thing that was stuck on. It came off with a great ease, but it now enables the door to be closed smoother. We taught today, Rabbi Isai, let's say somebody has a balata. Think about this case. A balata, a tile, but it's a trick tile. Betzim underneath that tile is either a sponge hole or it's a safe, right? It doesn't, the tsura of it though has a one with the karka. I think it's not a normal way to build balatas because you don't usually do cement balatas, but certainly I'd be chayshish that it has a tsura, and certainly I'd be chayshish that it's something that's not often opened, and therefore has a tsura of a oneness with the karka and would be in a sidrabanan. We saw the shelves in the fridge. I'd be very nervous to take them out on Shabbos. Mashen came, the bin in the fridge, the vegetable drawer in the fridge. No, that's something that's, you can understand is meant to come in and out, and that you could hear would be much more mutter. Pictures, clearly there's a makom to be makel on because the Mishabru is makel on tapestry, etc. The children's gate, certainly in Bnei Brak they're makel. I think even maybe the Mishabru would be makel, would be machmer. Certainly in Bnei Brak they're machmer. I think even the Mishabru would be machmer, that safety gate, unless it's the type of safety gate that comes on and off. The carpet, if it's a regular carpet, of course it's mutter. If it's a wall-to-wall carpet, that becomes oneness with the karka. The prabha that we gave to try to explain this, anything that remains with the dira when you sell the dira. When you sell the dira, so then nobody's taking off the floorboards, nobody's taking off the trisbach, so that's a oneness with the karka. The shaila I want to think about the boidim, the chayra, it clicks on. If it comes off, like obviously if it's attached, it's not a problem. But if it clicks on and comes off the gamre, I'm chayshish that such a thing would be at the rabbanon, not the deraisa. And it's Hashem. We'll continue Bez Hashem next week.
Okay, quite right. Just for a moment here, some questions. I only have problems with two things. First of all, the gates. So the Rav was talking about not opening the gates. The Rav was talking about taking the gates off and putting them in.
Correct. To put on the gate for the first time or the second time or the 20th time on Shabbos, not opening the gate. To open and close is great.
Right.
But a lot of the gates, you wedge in to both sides. That's the gate that I have.
Spring. It has a spring which holds the tension together.
Basically, mine doesn't have a spring. It more you keep on turning until it's wedged, but you can have a spring motion also.
And turning until it's wedged is clearly attaching it to the karka and taking it off.
It's not clear. It's not clear, but I'm chayshish that the Mishra will be machmir because that's attached on the top and attached on the bottom, and it's a building type material. It's not a curtain type material, which you could say doesn't have a oneness with karka.
And the second,
Rabbi Isai, the picture you showed me of that stairwell, that I would vadai be much more machmir. I mean, there at Mamish even looked like the gate. There's a whole sewer there. It looked like the railing. Mine, the only suffix I ever had is because it really doesn't look like the rest of the building structure. But when it Mamish looks like the building, so that's why I asked for Falk. Because there it didn't look like the building structure. So I thought maybe it could be Mekel. He wanted to be Mach.
Second, the Chazon Ish, if we understood correctly, he's a svara, since there doesn't seem to be a clear source in the Rishonim or in the Sugya.
Unbelievable. The Chazon Ish argues on all of the poskim that lived before him because in Svara he can't be Seifel.
And he would paskin that taking the picture of him off the back, that's an instant right.
So the picture is a machlekes between his nephews, his great nephews. Some of them hold that the Chazon Ish would agree that a picture is considered on the karka, and he only said it by a tapestry. Because a tapestry is something that becomes kivyochel like a wallpaper of sorts. But Lamaisa, it's a difficult shaila to know where the Chazon Ish would have given in and where he wouldn't have given in.
A mirror, a big mirror attached to the wall, something like that. That would.
Let's say, like everyone agrees if it's the derech to take on and off, no one's going to argue. Right. The Mashiv Ruach sign, Ishlad and how far the Chazon Ish is going to go. But
you didn't discuss the difference between the Mashiv Ruach and the El B'Yaveh sign, right? Somebody mentioned that could be a difference because the Mashiv Ruach stays for 6 months and the El B'Yaveh comes down after a few days.
I'll read you for one moment in the Chut Shani, in the Chelik Beis, in 242nd page. Tlias Tmuna, hanging a picture, B'Kfias L'das HaMogen Avram Mutter. Derech Agav, it's not L'das HaMogen Avram Mutter. It's L'das HaMogen Avram El Yerabah Mishnah Berurah Kol HaPoiskim in the world. U'L'das HaChazon Ish Yesh Lachash Mishum Beina. V'Davka Im Koivoi, it's only if you convey it there to be B'Kfias. If your das is to take it off, it's not a bittul and it's mutter. Now that line I actually have a hard time with, because why is your das kaveya? If we hear there's a surah that a picture remains, and I happen to know that every week before Shabbos you say l'shem yichud and you take it on and off so that you might be able to take it off on Shabbos. So why should that be a picture of something that remains? If I say all the time I'm giving the shir over here, the picture of the Chazon Ish is here. You never saw me without the picture. That means he's been here the whole time. Okay, because the Chazon Ish's picture I never move because I'm not allowed to. I don't even move it on Tuesday because I might move it on Shabbos. But Akabanim, the Shmira Shabbos in Perek Chav Gimel in Ha'ara Kuf Mem Aleph, he says Yesh Loimar the Miki's going on the Chazon Ish, and he says maybe even the Chazon Ish will be Mekel. Mikevin Shetoilas Atmuna Shenoyach Lasira. He says, why didn't you screw the picture in? It must be because you want to take it on and off. The Mela, that's called darko to take on and off. Yeah, that is what the Shmir Shabbos says in Perek Chav Gimel. The problem is in Perek Chav Daled in Sif Lamed Aleph, he seems to say the exact opposite. He says Tmuna shetoilin al kir aster litzleis afilu if you don't screw it in mahadik elarak toila and he just toila on a nail imam nam daito lashira if you plan on keeping it there. In the Kavanasa Lashir Baitin Kavua, Yesh Bizabaina. And I don't know exactly what happened. Why over here? He's going in the Chazon Ish. I don't know why over here he held the Chazon Ish as Machmer on a picture, and in a different place it sounds like the Chazon Ish would be Mekel on a picture. That I don't know, but the Mishmur is Mekel regardless. Agav, you can have a picture of Baisai, which is a very expensive picture, and you don't want to move it because you're afraid something might happen to it. That could be of Shaila of Chesar and Kiss.